So, hello and welcome back to another night with Ivanhoe. Probably a much longer night with Ivanhoe, looking at how many pages are in this chapter. It's going to be a long one. So, I have my handy dandy bottle of water because I feel like with Sir Walter Scott's chunky language, it hit me that this is probably because this is a early 1900s book that already has its own little language hiccups. Early 1900s, they spoke differently than we do today. But even more kind of making the language harder to parse for me in spots is the fact that this is Sir Walter Scott in the early 1900s writing the way he thinks people spoke in like the 11th century. So that's been interesting, or maybe the 14th or 15th. I don't know what time frame Ivanhoe is supposed to be taking place in. I think it's just an indeterminate medieval time. And so that's been quite the thing to get through. But I am enjoying it. Like, I still don't like very many of at least the male characters, and I feel like Rowena is not quite as sympathetic as Rebecca. But at least they're slightly more sympathetic than a lot of our male POV characters. That could also be because I'm a female and I have a little bit of a bias. Although I do have a lot of very favorite book characters who are male, so I don't know. A lot of the guys in this book are coming off bad. We'll just go with bad. Anyway, we have another quote at the start of this that hopefully I will be able to trip my tongue through, and then we're going to have a very long chapter, so I guess we should just start with the quote. Fond wretch, and what canst thou relate but deeds of sorrow, shame, and sin? Thy deeds are proved, thou knowest thy fate, but come, thy tale begin, begin. But I have griefs of other kind, troubles and sorrows more severe. Give me to ease my tortured mind, lend to my woes a patient ear, and let me, if I may not find a friend to help, find one to hear. And that is Crabbe's Hall of Justice. Interesting. It sounds like somebody doing a confession of some sort, which does make sense considering that our Wamba character did come in the guise of a holy man to hear final confessions. So that kind of makes sense. And with that, let us now jump into chapter 27 of Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. When Urfried had with clamors and menaces driven Rebecca back to the apartment from which she had sallied, she proceeded to conduct the unwilling Cedric into a small apartment, the door of which she heedfully secured. Then, fetching from a cupboard a stoup of wine and 2 flagons, she placed them on the table and said in a tone rather asserting a fact than question, "Thou art a Saxon, father. Deny it not," she said, continuing that Cedric hastened not to reply. "The sounds of my native language are sweet to my ears, though seldom heard, save from the tongues of the wretched and degraded serfs upon whom the proud Normans impose the meanest drudgery of this place. Thou art a Saxon, father, a Saxon, and save as thou art a servant of God, a freeman, your accents are sweet to my ear." "Do not Saxon priests visit this castle, then?" said Cedric. "It were, methinks, their duty to comfort the outcast and oppressed children of the soil." They come not. Or if they come, they better love to revel at the boards of their conquerors, said Urfried, than to hear the groans of their countrymen. So at least report speaks of them. Of myself I can say little. This castle for 10 years has opened to no priest save the debauched Norman chaplain who partook the nightly revels of Fondeboeuf, and he has been long gone to render an account of his stewardship. But thou art a Saxon priest, and I have one question to ask of you. I am a Saxon, said Cedric, but unworthy, surely, of the name of priest. Let me be gone on my way. I swear I will return, or send one of our fathers more worthy to hear your confession. Stay a while, said Urfried. The accents of the voice, which thou hearest now, will soon be choked with cold earth, and I would not descend to it like a beast I have lived. But wine must give me the strength to tell the horrors of my tale. She poured a cup and drank it quickly, which seemed desirous of draining the very last drop. It stupefies, she said, looking up as she finished her drink, but does not cheer. Partake it, father, if you would hear my tale without sinking down to the pavement. Cedric would have avoided pledging her in this ominous conviviality, but the sign which she made to him expressed both impatience and despair. He complied with her request and answered her challenge in a large wine cup. She then proceeded with her story, as if appeased by his compliance. I was born, she said. I was born, father, the wretch which you now see me. I was not that. I was free, happy, honored, loved, and beloved. I am now a slave, miserable and degraded, the sport of my master's passions while I had beauty, the object of contempt, scorn, and hatred since my beauty is gone. Do you not wonder, father, that I should hate mankind, and above all the race that has wrought this change on me? Can this wrinkled, decrepit hag in front of you, whose wrath much vents itself in curses, forget that she was once the daughter of a noble thane of Tokelstone, before whose frown 1,000 people trembled? You, the daughter of the Torkel of Wolfganger? Said Cedric, receding as he spoke. You, the daughter of that noble Saxon, my father's friend and companion in arms? Your father's friend, said Ulfried. Then Cedric the Saxon stands before me, for the noble Hereward of Rothwood only had one son, whose name is well known among his countrymen. But if you are Cedric, why the religious dress? Have you, too, despaired of saving your country and sought refuge from oppression in the shade of a convent? It matters not who I am, said Cedric. Proceed, sad woman, with your tale of horror and guilt. Guilt there must be. There is guilt even in the fact that you are alive to tell the tale. There is, said the wretched woman. Deep, black, damning guilt. Guilt that lies like a load in my breast. Guilt that all the penitential fires of hell cannot cleanse. Yes, in these halls, stained with the noble and pure blood of my father and brethren, in these very halls, to have lived the paramour of their murderer, the slave at once and the partaker of his pleasures, that renders every breath that I drew a crime and a curse. Wretched woman, said Cedric, and well the friends of thy father, each true Saxon heart, breathed a requiem for his soul and the souls of his sons, never forgot in their prayers the murdered Ulrica. While everyone mourned and honored the dead, you lived to merit our hate and execution. You lived to unite yourself with the vile tyrant who murdered your nearest and dearest, the man who shed the blood of infancy rather than a male of the noble house of Torkel Wolfganger should survive. With him you lived to unite yourself, and not even in holy matrimony? I united indeed, but not as love, said the hag. Love will sooner visit the religions of eternal doom than these vaults. No, with that at least I cannot reproach myself. Hatred to Front de Bœuf and all of his race governed my soul most deeply, even in the hour of his guilty endearments. You hated him, but you lived, said Cedric. Wretch, was there no knife, no way to... Well, was it for thee, since you did prize such an existence, that the secrets of a Norman castle should be like that of a grave? For had I but dreamed that the daughter of Torkel was living in foul communion with the murderer of her father, well, the sword of a true Saxon would have found you out, even while you were in his arms. Would you? Would you indeed have done this justice to the name of Torkel? Said Ulrica. For we may now lay aside her assumed name of Urfried. Thou art then the true Saxon that report speaks of you. For even within these accursed walls, as thou well sayest, the guilt shrouds itself in mystery. Even there has the name of Cedric been sounded, and I, wretched and degraded, have rejoiced to think that there yet breathed an avenger of our nation. I also have had my hours of vengeance. I have fomented the quarrels of our enemy, and heated drunken revelry into murder. I have seen their blood flow and heard their death groans. Look on me, Cedric. Are there not still left on this foul and faded face some traces of the features of Torkel? Do not ask me, Ulrica, said Cedric, in a tone of grief mixed with horror. These traces form such a resemblance as arise from the grave of the dead when a fiend has animated a corpse. Be it so, said Ulrica. Yet wore those fiendish features the mask of a spirit of light when they were able to set at variance the elder Front de Bœuf and his son Reginald. The darkness of hell should hide what followed, but revenge must lift the veil and darkly intimate what would raise the dead to speak aloud. Long, long had the smoldering fire of discord glowed between the tyrant father and his savage son. Long had I nursed in secret this hatred, and it blazed forth in the hour of a drunken wassail, and at his own board fell my oppressor by the hand of his son. Those are the secrets this house conceals. Rend asunder arches, she said, looking towards the roof, and bury in your fall all who are conscious of this hideous mystery. And you, creature of guilt and misery, said Cedric, what became your lot in the death of your ravisher? Guess it. Don't ask it. Here I dwelt, till age, premature age, has stamped its ghastly features on my face, scorned and insulted where I was once obeyed, compelled to bound the revenge which had once such ample scope to the efforts of petty malice of a discontented menial, or the vain and unheeded curses of an impotent hag. Condemned to hear from my lonely tower the sounds of revelry in which I once partook, or the shrieks and groans of new victims of oppression. Ulrica, said Cedric, with a heart which still, I fear, regrets the lost reward of thy crimes as much as the deeds by which thou didst acquire that need. How did you dare to address yourself to one who wears this robe? Consider, unhappy woman, what could the sainted Edward himself do for you if he were here? The royal confessor was endowed by heaven with the power to cleanse the ulcers of the body, but only God can cure the leprosy of your soul. Please don't turn from me, prophet of wrath, she said, but tell me if you can, in what shall terminate these new and awful feelings that burst on my solitude? Why do deeds long since done rise before me in new and irresistible horrors? What fate is prepared beyond the grave for her to whom God has assigned on the earth such unspeakable wretchedness? Better that I turn to Woden, Hertha, Zerbanach, to Mista, to the Skulgulga, to the gods of our unbaptized ancestors, than endure the dreadful anticipation which a life of late haunted my waking and sleeping hours will earn me. I am no priest, said Cedric, turning with disgust from this miserable picture of guilt and wretchedness and despair. I am no priest, though I wear a priest's gown. Priest or layman, said Ulrica, you are the first I have seen for 20 years by whom God was feared or man regarded, and you bid me to just despair? I bid you to repent, said Cedric. Seek to prayer and penance, and may you find acceptance, but I cannot, I will not stay another minute with you. Please stay, said Ulrica. Leave me not now, son of my father's friend, lest the demon who has governed my life should tempt me to avenge myself of your hard-hearted scorn. Think, if Front de Bœuf found Cedric the Saxon in his castle in this disguise, your life would not last long. Already his eye has been upon you like a falcon on prey. And let it be so, said Cedric. Let him tear me with beak and talon before my tongue says one word which my heart does not warrant. I'll die a Saxon. True in word, open in deed. I bid you, don't touch me. Do not keep me here. The sight of Front de Bœuf himself is less odious to me than you, degraded and degenerate as you are. Be it so, then, said Ulrica. Go your way, and forget, in the insolence of your superiority, that the wretch before you is the daughter of your father's friend. Go your way, if I am separated from mankind by my suffering, separated from those who I might justly expect, well, not less will I be separated from them in my revenge. No men shall aid me, but the ears of all men will tingle to hear of the deed which I dare do. Farewell, then. Your scorn has burst the last tie which seemed to unite me to my own kind. I thought that my woes might claim the compassion of my own people. Ulrica, said Cedric, softened by her appeal, hast thou borne up and endured to live through so much guilt and so much misery? And will you now yield to despair when your eyes are open to your crime and when repentance is your better occupation? Cedric, said Ulrica, thou little knowest of the human heart. To act as I have acted, to think as I have thought, requires the maddening love of pleasure mingled with the keen appetite for revenge, the consciousness of power. These are draughts too intoxicating for the human heart to bear and retain the power to prevent. Their force is long passed away. Age has no pleasure. Wrinkles have no influence. Revenge dies away into impotent curses. Then comes remorse with all of its vipers, mixed with vain regret for the past and despair for the future. Then, when all other strong impulses have ceased, we become like the fiends of hell who may feel remorse but never repentance. But your words have awakened a new soul in me. Well hast thou said, all is possible for those who dare to die. You've shown me the means of revenge, and be assured I will soon embrace it. It has before now shared this wasted bosom with other rival passions. Henceforward it will only possess me, and thou thyself shall say that whatever was the life of Ulrica, her death well became the daughter of her father, the noble Torquil. There is a force without beleaguering this accursed castle. Hasten to lead them to the attack, and when you see a red flag wave from this turret, the turret on the eastern angle of the donjon, press the Normans hard. They will then have enough to do inside, and you may win the war in spite of the bow and the mangle. Now leave. Follow your fate. Leave me to my own. Cedric would have inquired more into the purpose which she had just announced, but the stern voice of Front de Bœuf was heard saying, Where is this loitering priest? By the scallop shell of Camponestel, I will make a martyr of him if he loiters here, hatching treason amongst my domestics. What a true prophet, said Ulrica, is an evil conscience. But don't listen to him. Get out and to your people. Cry your Saxon onslaught. Let them sing their war song of Rollo, if they want. Vengeance shall bear a burden to it. And as she spoke, she vanished through a private door, and Reginald Front de Bœuf entered the apartment. Cedric, with some difficulty, compelled himself to bow to the haughty baron, who returned this courtesy with a slight nod of his head. Thy penitents, father, have made a long shrift. Is the better for them, since it's the last they'll ever make. Have you prepared them for death? I found them, said Cedric, in what French he could command, expecting the worst, from the moment they knew into whose power they had fallen. How now, Sir Friar, said Front de Bœuf. Your speech, methinks, has a Saxon accent. I was bred in the convent of St. Withold of Burton, said Cedric. Ay, said the baron, it had been better for you to have been a Norman, better for my purposes as well, but need makes no choice of messenger. That St. Withold's of Burton is a howlet's nest worth harrying, I know. The day will soon come when the frock will protect the Saxon as little as mail. God's will be done, said Cedric, in a voice shaking with passion, which Front de Bœuf thought was fear. I see, he said. Thou dreamest already that our men-at-arms are in your refractory and ale vaults, but do me one cast of your holy office, and come what list of others, you will sleep as safe in your cell as a snail in his shell. Speak your commands, said Cedric, suppressing his emotion. Follow me through this passage, then, that I may dismiss you by the postern. And as he strode on his way before the supposed friar, Front de Bœuf thus schooled him in the part which he desired to play. You see, Sir Friar, this herd of Saxon swine, who have dared to environ this castle, tell them whatever you have a mind of the weakness of this castle, or of anything else that can detain them for the next 24 hours. Me, meantime, bear this scroll to them. But soft, can you read, Sir Priest? No, said Cedric, save on my breviary. And then I know the characters because I have the Holy Service by heart. Praise to Our Lady and Saint Withold. You are the perfect messenger for my purpose, then. Carry the scroll to the castle of Philip de Malvision. Say it cometh from me, and is written by the Templar Brian de Bois Guilbert, and that I pray him to send to York with all speed a man and horse can make. In the meantime, tell him to doubt nothing, that he shall find us whole and sound behind our walls. Shame on it, that we should be compelled to hide from a pack of runagates, who are liable to fly even at the flash of our pennants or the stamp of our horse. I say to thee, priest, contrive some cast of yours to keep the knaves exactly where they are until our friends come with their lances. My vengeance is awake, and she is a falcon that slumbers not until she is fed. By my patron saint, said Cedric, with more energy than he probably should have shown, and by every saint who has ever lived and died in England, I will obey your commands. Not a Saxon shall stir from these walls if I have influence to keep them here. Ha! Said Front de Bœuf. You change your tone, Sir Priest, and speak brief and bold, as if your heart were in the slaughter of the Saxon herd, and yet you are yourself kin to these swine. Cedric was no ready practitioner of the art of dissimulation, and would at this moment have been much the better of a hint from Wamba's brain, but necessity, according to the ancient proverbs, sharpens invention, and he muttered something under his cowl concerning the men in question being excommunicated outlaws, both for the church and kingdom. Desperado, said Front de Bœuf, you have spoken the truth. I forgot that the knaves can strip a fat abbot as well as if he had been born south of yonder salt channel. Was it not he of St. Ives who they tied to an oak tree and compelled to sing a mass while they were rifling his mails and wallets? No, by Our Lady, that jest was played by Gaultier of Middleton, one of our own companions at arms, but they were Saxons who robbed the chapel at St. Bees of cup, candlestick, and chalice, were they not? They were godless men, said Cedric. Ay, and they drank out all the good wine and ale that lay in store for many a secret carousal. Yet when ye pretend that you are but bruised with vigils and primes, priest, you are bound to revenge that sacrilege, I think. I am indeed bound to vengeance, said Cedric. Saint Withold knows my heart. Front de Bœuf, in the meantime, led the way to a postern where, passing the moat on a single plank, they reached a small barbican, or exterior defense, which communicated with the open field by a well-fortified sally-port. Begone, then, and if you will do mine errand, and if you will return here when it's done, you will see the Saxon flesh, cheap as it ever was, a hog's in the shambles of Sheffield. And hark ye, you seem to be a jolly confessor. Come here after the onslaught, and you will have as much malveillance as would drench an entire convent. Oh, no doubt we will meet again, said Cedric. Something in your hand, in the meantime, said the Norman, And as they parted at the postern door, he thrust into Cedric's reluctant hand a gold bezant, adding, "Remember, I will flay off both your cowl and skin if you fail me." "And I give you full leave to do both things," said Cedric, as he left the postern, and striding forth over the free field with a happy step, "if when we meet next I deserve not better at your hand." Turning then back towards the castle, he threw the piece of gold towards the door, exclaiming at the same time, "False Norman! May your money perish with you." And now I'm going to get a drink and be right back. This is a long chapter. Back to it. Front de Bœuf heard the words imperfectly, but the action seemed suspicious to him. "Archers," he called to the warders on the battlements, "send me an arrow through yon monk's frock. Yet stay," he said, as his retainers were bending their arrows. "It avails not. We must trust him, since we have nothing better. I think that he does not dare betray me. Or, at the worst, I can but treat with these Saxton dogs, whom I have safe in a kennel. Ho, Giles Jailer, let them bring Cedric of Rotherwood before me, and the other churl, his companion, him, I mean, of Coinsborough, Athelstane. Let them bring him there, or whatever they call him. Their names are an encumbrance to a Norman knight's mouth, and have, as it were, the flavor of bacon. Bring me some wine, as jolly Prince John said, that I may wash away the relish, place it in the armory, and there bring the prisoners." His commands were obeyed, and upon entering that Gothic apartment, hung with many spoils won by his own valor and that of his father, he found a flagon of wine on the massive oak table, and his 2 Saxton captives under the guard of 4 of his dependents. Front de Bœuf took a long drink of wine, and then spoke to his prisoners, for the manner in which Wamba drew the cap over his face, the change of dress, the gloomy broken light, and the Baron's imperfect acquaintance with what Cedric looked like, since he avoided his neighbors and seldom left his own house, did prevent Front de Bœuf from discovering that the most important of his captives had escaped. "Gallants of England," said Front de Bœuf, "how relish you your entertainment here? Are ye yet aware of your Sundquay and Ocrondant's merit for scoffing at the entertainment of a prince of the house of Anjou? Have ye forgotten how you requited the unmerited hospitality of the royal Prince John? By God and St. Denis, an ye not pay the richer ransom, I will hang ye up by the feet from the iron bars of these windows until the hooded crows have made skeletons of you. Speak out, Saxton dogs. What do you bid for your worthless lives? What do you say, you of Rotherwood?" "Not a doant I," said poor Wamba. "And for hanging up by the feet, my brain has been topsy-turvy, they say, ever since the big un was first bound round my head. So turning the upside down may be good and restore my brain again." "Saint Genevieve," said Front de Bœuf, "what have we got here?" And with the back of his hand he struck Cedric's cap from the head of the jester, and throwing open his collar, discovered the fatal badge of servitude, the silver collar round his neck. "Giles, Clement, dogs!" said the furious Norman. "What have you brought me here?" "I think I can tell you," said De Bracy, entering the apartment. "This is Cedric's clown, who fought so manful a skirmish with Isaac of York about a question of precedence." "I'll settle it for them both," replied Front de Bœuf. They will hang on the same gallows unless his master and this boar of Coinsborough will pay for their lives. Their wealth is the least they can surrender. They must also carry off with them the swarms that are besetting my castle, subscribe a surrender of their pretend immunities, and live under us as vassals. Too happy if, in the new world that will begin, we leave them the breath in their nostrils. Go, he said to two of his attendants. Fetch me the actual Cedric here, and I will pardon your error for once. The rather that you mistook a fool for a Saxon lord. Ay, but, said Wamba, your chivalrous excellency will find there are more fools than lords amongst us. What does this knave mean? Said Front de Bœuf, looking towards his followers, who, lingering and loath to leave, were faltering in their belief that if this were not Cedric who was there, they didn't know where Cedric was. Saints of heaven, said De Bracy. He must have escaped in the monk's garments. Fiends of hell, said Front de Bœuf. It was then the boar of Rotherwood who I ushered to the postern and I dismissed with my own hands? And you, he said to Wamba, whose folly could overreach the wisdom of idiots yet more gross than me. I'll give you holy orders. I will shave them into your crown for you. Here, let them tear the scalp from his head, and then pitch him from the battlements. Your trade is joking. Can you joke now? You deal with me better than your word, noble knight, whimpered poor Wamba, whose habits of buffoonery were not to be overcome even by the immediate prospect of death. If you give me the red cap that you propose, out of a simple monk you will turn me into a cardinal. The poor wretch, said De Bracy. He's resolved to die in his vocation. Front de Bœuf, do not slay him. Give him to me, to make sport for my free companions. What say you, knave? Will you take the heart of grace and go on to the wars with me? I, with my master's leave, said Wamba. For look you, I must not slip the collar, he touched the collar that he wore, without his permission. Oh, a Norman saw will soon cut off a Saxon collar, said De Bracy. Ay, noble sir, said Wamba, and thence goeth the proverb, Norman saw on English oak, on English neck a Norman yoke, Norman spoon in English dish, and England ruled as Normans wish. Blithe word to England never will be more, till England's rid of all the four. You do well, De Bracy, said Front de Bœuf, to stand there listening to a fool's talk when destruction is gaping for us. See that we are not overreached, and that our mode of communicating with our friends outside has been disconcerted by this motley gentleman that you are so fond of speaking to. What views have we to expect but an instant storm? To the battlements, then, said De Bracy. When did you ever see me the graver for the thought of battle? Call the Templar here, and let him fight but half so well for his life as he has done for his order. Make you to the walls yourself. Let me do my poor endeavor in my own way, and I tell you these Saxon outlaws may as well attempt to scale the clouds as this castle, or, if you want to treat with the bandits, why not employ the mediation of this worthy Franklin, who seems in such deep contemplation of his wine? Here, Saxton, he said, addressing Athelstine and handing him a cup. Rinse your throat with this noble liquor, and rouse your soul to say whatever you will to get for your own liberty. What a man Mold may, said Athelstine, providing it be what a man of manhood ought. Dismiss me free with my companions, and I will pay a ransom of 1,000 marks. And will you assure us the retreat of the scum who is surrounding my castle? Said Front de Bœuf. In as far as I can, said Athelstane, I will withdraw them, and I fear not but that my father Cedric will do his best to assist me. We are agreed then, said Front de Bœuf. You and they are to be set at freedom, and peace is to be on both sides for the payment of 1,000 marks. It's a trifling ransom, Saxton, and you will owe gratitude to the moderation which accepts of it in exchange for your person. But mark my words, this does not extend to the Jew. Nor to the Jew's daughter, said the Templar who came in. Neither, said Front de Bœuf. Neither belong to this Saxton's company. I would not be able to be called a Christian if they were part of my company, said Athelstane. Deal with the unbelievers as you want. Neither does it ransom the Lady Rowena, said De Bracy. It shall never be said that I was scared out of my prize without fighting for it. Neither, said Front de Bœuf, does our treaty refer to the wretched jester, who I retain, that I may make him an example to every knave who wants to turn jokes into reality. The Lady Rowena, said Athelstane, with a steady face, is my affianced bride. I will be drawn by wild horses before I part with her. The slave Wamba has on this day saved the life of Cedric. I will lose my own. I will not lose a hair of his head to be injured. Your bride? The Lady Rowena, the affianced bride of a vassal like you? Said De Bracy. Saxton, you dream that the days of the 7 kingdoms are returned again. I tell you, the princes of the house of Anjou confer not upon the wards of men such a lineage as yours. My lineage, proud Norman, said Athelstane, is drawn from a source more pure and more ancient than that of beggarly Frenchmen, whose living is won by selling the blood of the thieves who he assembles under his standard. Kings were my ancestors, strong in war and wise in council, who every day feasted in their halls more hundreds than you can remember as individual followers, whose names have been sung by the minstrels and their laws recorded by wittenmotes, whose bones were interred among the prayers of the saints, and over whose tombs minsters have been built. There you have it, De Bracy, said Front de Bœuf, well pleased with the rebuff which his companion had just received. Saxton hit right on the mark. As fairly as a captive can, said De Bracy, apparently careless, for he whose hands are tied should have his tongue at free. But your glibness of reply, comrade, he said, speaking now to Athelstane, will not win the freedom of the Lady Rowena. To this, Athelstane, who had already made a longer speech than he normally would on any topic, no matter how interesting, made no answer. This conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a servant who announced that a monk was demanding entrance at the postern gate. In the name of Saint Bennet, Prince of the Bugger-Bears, said Front de Bœuf, do we have a real monk this time, or another impostor? Search him, slaves, before you suffer a second impostor to be palmed off on you. I will pull your eyes if that happens. Let me endure to the extremity of your anger, my lord, said Giles. If this be not a real shaveling, Your squire Jocelyn knows him well, and will vouch that he is the brother Ambrose, a monk in attendance upon the prior of Jorvaulot." "Then admit him," said Front de Bœuf. "Most likely he brings us news from his master. Surely the devil keeps holiday, and the priests are relieved from duty, that they are strolling around the countryside today. Remove these prisoners. And, Saxton," he said to Athelstane, "think on what you have heard." "I claim," said Athelstane, "an honorable imprisonment, with due care that my board and my couch becomes my rank, and is due to one who is in treat for ransom. Moreover, I hold him that deems himself the best of you bound to answer me with his body for this aggression on my freedom. This defiance has already been set to thee by sewer. You underlie it, and you are now bound to answer me. Here lies my glove." "I answer not to the challenge of a prisoner," said Front de Bœuf. "Nor shall you, Maurice de Bracy. Giles," he continued, "hang the franklin's glove upon the tine of yonder branched antlers. There it will remain until he's a free man. Should he then presume to demand it, or to affirm that he was unlawfully made my prisoner, then by the belt of St. Christopher he will speak to one who hath never refused to meet a foe on foot or horseback, alone or with an army at his back." The Saxon prisoners were accordingly removed, just as they introduced the monk Ambrose, who appeared to be in great distress. "This is the real Deus Vobiscum," said Wamba, as he passed the reverend brother. "The others were but counterfeit." "Holy Mother," said the monk, as he turned to the knights, "at last I am safe and in Christian keeping." "Safe you are," said De Bracy. "And for Christianity, well, here is the stout Baron Reginald Front de Bœuf, whose utter abomination is a Jew, and the good Knight Templar Brian de Bois Guilbert, whose trade it is to slay Saracens. If this isn't the mark of great Christianity, I know of nothing else that it could be." You are friends and allies of our reverend father in God, Father Aymer, the prior of Jorvaulot?" said the monk, without noticing the tone of De Bracy's reply. You owe him aid, both knightly in faith and in holy charity, for what saith the blessed St. Augustine in his treatise in De Civitate Dei?" "What says the devil?" said Front de Bœuf, interrupting. "Or rather, what do you say, Sir Priest? We have little time to hear texts from the Holy Father." "Sancta Maria," said Father Ambrose, "how prompt to ire are these laymen! Be it known to you, brave knights, that certain murderous caitiffs, casting beyond them the fear of God and reverence for his church, and not regarding the bull of the Holy See, si quis sudante diablo." "Brother priest," said the Templar, "all this we know or guess. Tell us plainly, is your master the prior a prisoner, and to whom is he prisoner of?" "Surely," said Ambrose, "he is in the hands of the men of Belial, infestors of these woods, commoners of the holy text. We touch not my anointed. Do my prophets naught but evil? Please save him." "Well, here is a new argument for war, sirs," said Front de Bœuf, turning to his companions. "And so, instead of rendering us any assistance, the prior of Jorvaulot is now requesting aid. Man is well helped of these lazy churchmen when he needs them. But speak out, priest. Say at once, what does your master expect from us?" "If it pleases you," said Ambrose, violent hands having been imposed on my reverend superior, contrary to the holy ordinance which I already have quoted, and the man of Belial having rifled through his mails and his budgets and stripped him of 200 marks of pure refined gold, and demanding still a large sum before they will let him depart from their uncircumcised hands. So the Reverend Father, in God, prays to you as his dear friends to rescue him, either by paying down the ransom which they're holding him for, or force of arms, whichever you choose. "The foul fiend quell the prior," said Front de Bœuf. "His morning's draught has been a deep one. When did your master hear of a Norman baron unbuckling his purse to relieve a churchman? His bags are 10 times as weighty as our own. And how can we do anything by valor to free him, when we are cooped up here by 10 times our number, and we are expecting an assault at any moment?" "That's what I was about to tell you," said the monk, "had your hastiness allowed me time. But God help me, I'm old, and all these foul onslaughts are distracting an old man's brain. Nevertheless, it is of veracity that they assemble a camp and raise a bank against the walls of this castle." "To the battlements," said De Bracy, "and let us mark what these knaves are doing out there." And as he said this, he opened a lattice window which led to a sort of Byzantine or projecting balcony, and immediately called from there to those in the apartment, "St. Denis, but the old monk hath brought true tidings. They are bringing up mantelets and passives, and the archers are mustering on the skirts of the wood, looking like a dark cloud before a hailstorm." Reginald Front de Bœuf also looked out over the field. He immediately snatched up his bugle, and after winding a long and loud blast, he commanded his men to their posts on the walls. "De Bracy, look to the eastern side, where the walls are lowest. Noble Bois Guilbert, your trade hath well taught you how to attack and defend. You go to the western side. I myself will take the post at the Barbican. Yet do not confine your exertions to any one spot, friends. We must on this day be everywhere, multiply ourselves if it were possible, so as to carry by our presence relief wherever the attack is the hottest. Our numbers are few, but activity and courage may supply that defect, since we have only dealing with rascally clowns out there." But noble knights," said Father Ambrose, amidst all the bustle and the confusion, "what, will none of you hear the message of the prior of Jorvaulx? I please beg you, hear me, noble sir." "Go patter your petitions to heaven," said the Norman, "for we right now have no time to listen to them. Ho, Amslim!" he said, seeing that the pitch and oil are ready to pour onto the heads. "Pour that onto the heads of these traitors. Look that the crossbowmen do not lack for bolts. Fling my banner with the old bull head, so that the knaves will find who they are fighting today." "But, noble sir," said the monk, persevering in his endeavors to draw attention, "consider my vow of obedience, and please let me discharge myself of my errand." "Take away this prattling dotard," said Front de Bœuf. "Lock him in the chapel to tell his beads until the broil is over. It will be a new thing to the saints in Torquilstone to hear aves and paters. They haven't been honored, I vow, since they were cut out of the stone." "Blaspheme not the holy saints, Sir Reginald," said De Bracy. "We will have need of their aid today." "I expect very little help from them," said Front de Bœuf, "unless we hurl the statues from the battlements onto the heads of the villains. There is a huge lumbering St. Christopher out yonder. It might take out a whole company." In the meantime, the Templar had been looking out at the proceedings of the besiegers with rather more attention than Front de Bœuf or his other companion. "By the faith of my order," he said, "these men approach with more discipline than could have been judged, however they came by it. See how dexterously they avail themselves of every cover which a tree or bush affords, and they don't expose themselves to the shot of our crossbows. I don't see a banner or a pennon among them, and yet will I gage my golden chain that they're led by some noble knight or gentleman, skillful in war." "I espy him," said De Bracy. "I see the waving of a knight's crest and the gleam of his armor. See that tall man in the black mail, who is busied marshalling out the further troops? By Saint Denis, I think it's the same one that we call Le Noir Fantant, who overthrew you, Front de Bœuf, on the lists." "So much the better," said Front de Bœuf, "that he comes here to give me my revenge. Some hiding fellow he must be, who dared not stay to assert his claim to the tourney prize when he could. I should in vain have sought for him where the knights and nobles seek their foes, and yet right glad am I that he has shown himself here among the villainry." The demonstrations of the enemy's immediate approach cut off all discourse. Each knight went to his post, and at the head of the few followers that they were able to muster, and who were in numbers not adequate to defend the whole extent of the walls, they all settled in and awaited with calm determination for the next great assault. And that is the end of the chapter. That was a long one. That was a really long one. It was pretty good, though. Hopefully I didn't trip over my tongue too many times on that, but yep, nobody's died yet. So that's a good thing. As some friends and I say when we're playing one of our video games, and nobody important died. Of course, we usually say that once one of us has died in the video game, but in this case, nobody important has died. In fact, nobody has died that's a named character. I still don't like Cedric. I definitely don't like any of our Norman friends. Not so sure I'm fond of Athelstein. He definitely seems more preoccupied with food. And I've got a lot of sympathy for, I can't remember her name, Ulfrida or whatever, our Saxton crone. I have a lot more sympathy for her than Cedric seems to be extending. Because it sounds like her castle was besieged, her everybody in that place was killed, and she came to what accommodation she could to survive. Probably a little bit of Stockholm syndrome, followed by a lot of plotting. She did the best she could. Cedric, I don't like you. Anyway, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.